I'm going to start my speech actually. That was like the last 12 hours that really changed my speech. So, this is what I do in my day job. Redress. When I was invited to speak about empathy, I thought, why? Why would I want to speak about empathy? And why would I have chosen to speak about empathy? I thought they must have got me wrong. Like, empathy and me? I'd never really thought about empathy because, quite honestly, I'm just empathetic in my heart and my soul. I'm just an empathetic person. I've never really put a label on my feelings. And it was because of being really invited to do this speech that I thought about empathy in my life so much more. And I've come to realise so much about empathy. Empathy is the wonder drug. It is the wonder emotion. It is a fantastic thing. We all have it. And it's really just through this experience that I've come to understand what it is. So this is apparently the definition. It's the experience of understanding another person's condition from their perspective. And basically you place yourself in their shoes and feel what they are feeling. And it is known to increase helping behaviour. So there's many definitions. It's basically trying to understand how the other person is feeling, putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. You don't have to be a saint, a Nobel Peace Prize winner. You don't have to be anything to be empathetic. You really just have to be human, because we are all innately empathetic. We're born with it. It doesn't matter. It's not a moralistic thing in some ways. It's really just part of our DNA. And we do that. It's in our DNA because it's for our own benefit. You know, in hunter-gatherer times, we need to work as a community. If you want to be successful, you have to work in a team. And all of these attributes are actually, empathy plays a massive role in that. One of the big things, of course, is that we all display a different amount of empathy. So I'm going to pretend that my empathy is here, whatever, I don't know where it is in your brain. It's an emotion, and my empathy is actually quite big. I've never realised it, I've never questioned it, I've never really thought about it. It's just that I have quite a bit of empathy, and other people don't. And what I've discovered actually is that empathy is so important, and we need to keep working on our empathy. For example, for me, I'm really, really empathetic around people in developing countries. I'm really empathetic around people who have no rights and no opportunities. For me, that breaks my heart that, you know, someone could be living in poverty but have an amazing brain and amazing talent, but can't access their life. So I'm empathetic around those sorts of people, and I'm less empathetic towards sort of successful people, because I think you've been given all the chances in the world, you know, good for you. So I'm learning to extend my empathy. I'm not saying like I'm a do-gooder, or I'm not a saint, and I'm not Mother Teresa at all, but my empathy is quite strong towards disadvantaged people. So I want to tell you a few examples of how empathy has always been in my life, but again, I've never actually given it a second thought until preparing for this talk. So I've had a bit of a varied career. That's me over in the left. Actually, I used to be a dentist actually in the UK, and I worked for 2 years and actually completely hated it. And it's really, I've always thought that I hated dentistry because I was always hurting people, but in preparing for this speech I've realised that actually I hated dentistry because I'm relatively empathetic. Because basically, you know, you have people in your chair and they don't want to be there, and they know that you're going to hurt them, and basically you're going to, you know, stick needles in them and drill them and make them bleed. And essentially it doesn't feel very good. And so I hated it, because I sensed what they were feeling, and it was so stressful. And the big turning point in my career as a dentist, actually, the big reason why I gave it up was one particular patient, and again, I've never told anyone this, I've only told like secret friends and stuff. So what happened was I had this patient who had ME, which is basically like a glandular fever type disease. She basically was constantly in bed, she didn't have any energy, and she was very, very sick. But she also had a problem with her teeth, so she did used to come and see me. And I knew that every time she came to see me, it knocked her out big time. She couldn't get out of bed for 2 weeks after she came to see me. And so one time she came to see me, and I did this big filling, and long story cut short, it just wasn't going very well. I had a lot of disasters with every possible aspect of my talent and my machinery. And I muscled my way through it, swearing in my mind and sweating and absolutely bloody furious. But I finished the job, and off she went. And I've never got over feeling so terrible about the fact that she would have been in bed for 2 weeks after that really rubbish filling that I gave her. And it was that point that I said, right, that's it. I'm done with this job because I just can't bear it. I then actually moved out to Asia, and interestingly, because this is not Cavendish Square, this photo, this is not my posh, fancy clinic where I treated rich people. This is actually some street kids in Manila. So, no, I can't remember where this one is actually. So basically, when I got out here, I decided to go and travel the world a bit by doing free dentistry. Because I thought, well, at least I've done 5 years, I could, do some good with it. I went to prisons. I worked in Phnom Penh in a big prison there. They hadn't had a dentist for 10 years. I brought all my own equipment in with me. In fact, some dentists in Hong Kong lent me some kit. I worked for street kids. I worked for orphans in China, Cambodia, Philippines. I think what was really driving me was just thinking, like, seriously, if you have really, really bad toothache, don't you just want to see a dentist? Because I recently had toothache and it was horrific. And again, that's empathy. That was just thinking about these poor people. The guy, I hadn't actually pulled out a tooth for quite some time because there was a bit of a time delay between Cavendish Square and Phnom Penh prison. And then my first patient in Phnom Penh prison, I was digging away and it was another bloody hard extraction. And then at the end of it, I was like, okay, I got talking to him and I said, oh, why are you in here? And he said, oh, well, I'm a murderer. I was like, okay. But regardless, one must not judge. There's a lot of terrible things going on in Cambodia where actually it's not as clear cut. There's lots of land grabs and stuff, and he'd got involved in some land grab and it had gone wrong. So I trained as a journalist. When I did finally give up pulling out teeth, I retrained as a journalist. And when I first came to Hong Kong, I worked for 2 years doing whatever I wanted as a freelance journalist, which was quite good fun. I wrote about all sorts of things. And again, at the time, I didn't think I was empathetic, and I wasn't actually trying to I wasn't trying to be a do-gooder. I was just doing things that I was interested in. But when I look back at the articles that I wrote, I can see how empathy has always been quite a big driver for me. So one of my big articles was a relatively big expose on migrant sex workers' human rights in Hong Kong. And of the many things that I discovered through talking to sex workers' organisations and talking to ex-sex workers was, in some situations, this doesn't happen all the time, but if they get caught by the police, they tend to be in breach of their visa because they're working without a visa. And there were a lot of women, and through the NGO that I was working with, who said that actually occasionally, this is anecdotal, I don't know it for proof, but actually when police catch these women, they bribe them to let them off by actually taking free services off these women. And I thought that is absolutely disgusting. These poor workers, they're trying to get by, they have kids, they're doing a job that quite honestly no woman would really, I think, want to do, and then they get violated by the police. So I thought that was appalling, so I wrote about that. Another big one I wrote about was around tobacco taxation in Hong Kong, because all governments around the world have different policies on how they tax tobacco. Basically, the more tax you slap on tobacco, the more expensive they get. I used to be a smoker, don't worry. The more expensive cigarettes get, the less people smoke. And also, the people who don't smoke so much are those who are at the lower socioeconomic groups. It's the people who are really poor, who have bad health, they smoke less. And so ultimately, why I was driven to write that article is because I believe that governments should tax these disgusting things that kill the uneducated and poor who don't have access to decent care. I'm not always this serious, don't worry, because one of the articles that I wrote was about how to spice up your sex life when you're 8 months pregnant. That involved me road testing some hardcore lingerie for pregnant women. And if you want to know, they have like huge sort of ties, big elastic. So I had to go at that, and that was an expression of empathy for my husband at the time. I'm still married to him, but anyway. So then I think where my empathy again got really hardcore switched on was around the environment, and that's really what's going to lead me to my life really, because I wrote a lot about China's environment and Asia's environment, and we all know the world is actually relatively screwed. The pollution in our environment is disgraceful. Looking at China, 16 out of the world's most polluted cities are in China. And I think that is appalling. You think of all the cities around the world, and 16 out of the top 20 are right here. I think that is completely unjust. I think that is horrific. When I looked at how bad the fashion and textile industry was, this was as a journalist, because I didn't know anything about fashion, I just thought, crap, this is a polluted country, China, and they're making the world's textiles and clothes. And the fashion industry is incredibly polluting, as is the textile industry. And so I guess it was really my desire to start Redress was born out of the ultimate goal to help these people who are living near polluted rivers and toxic land, and farmers who can't continue to work and live because their land is completely polluted. And that's not to mention all the slaves and the labour issues that are involved in the fashion industry. So I started Redress, and our mission is to try to reduce the pollution in the fashion industry. Now, I think, have I got, is there a video? No, okay. So, I'm not going to bore you and do a sales pitch about Redress, but long story cut short, what we try to do is along the supply chain make the fashion industry more sustainable, working with designers, brands, suppliers, consumers, media, research, academia, I sometimes think that what we do is just plant bombs in each of these sectors and try to make them do more in their sectors. That's what we do. I'm not going to talk more about it than that. But there are two major things with Redress in how we operate that I've only realised through doing this presentation around empathy. The first part of what we do is we try to we are directly empathetic. So, and this might play out in your own lives as well, in how you experience empathy. So from Redress's perspective, from my perspective, I feel empathy very much towards the bottom of the supply chain, the people that are really wrecked by this fashion industry that's so disgusting and polluting. And so what we try, by acting to make the industry better, we're trying to improve the lives of these people. But there's a second layer of empathy that we're trying to, there's a second sort of layer of this that we're trying to promote, and it's a much bigger thing, and it's much more exciting than doing it directly. And that is using empathy as a sort of tool for social change by making other people feel empathy. Because the problem that we have with the fashion industry, and maybe it's true for some of your sectors, because I think this is pretty much a global problem, is that we don't feel empathy enough. In the fashion industry, people buy so many clothes. They buy clothes and clothes and clothes and clothes, more clothes than they can possibly ever wear, and then they just chuck them out. And the problem is that humans, in terms of fashion, maybe you can relate it to your own industries, but us humans in terms of fashion, we've stopped thinking about all the people that are behind the clothes. We buy our clothes, stuff them in the bag, wear them once, chuck them out, but we're so disconnected from what's going on behind the shop floor. And that is the problem of the fashion industry, that no one really cares that, someone's got cancer down that river, someone's, dying in Bangladesh, getting squashed to death at work, because we just can't feel that far away from ourselves. And so what we're trying to do with Redress is spark that empathy for the bigger picture. And I'm going to give you two examples of how we do this. The first one is with young designers. Okay, so one of our projects is a sustainable fashion design competition. Now, we've discovered, through working with a lot of fashion designers, that designers are ridiculously important when it comes to the ethics of a product, the sustainability of a product. And this is a general PhD study that we've been following, which will be true for some of your design sectors as it is for fashion, because it's just a blanket finding across design. So this PhD found that designers have can influence 80 to 90% of the environmental and economic impact of the product. And when we discovered this, we thought, fantastic. Designers are really, really important, because the designer thinks about the product, they source it, they envisage it, they think about how it's going to be used, they think about, hopefully, how it's going to be disposed of. The whole creation of the product is in their mind. And so what we found, though, with young designers is that they didn't know how to get going. They're like, oh yeah, I think I care about the environment, and I think I care about all these people who are dying, but I don't know what to do about it, because it's quite honestly a very big problem. So we've created a project that we thought will directly help designers like Kelvin. And I'm going to show you a quick video.
Textile waste generated by the fashion industry and consumers is increasingly becoming an urgent environmental and economic concern. Designers influence an estimated 80 to 90% of the environmental and economic impact of a product, and this puts designers in a powerful position to change the fashion industry from the source. This is why Redress launched the EcoChic Design Awards Sustainable Fashion Design Competition, in order to educate and enable emerging fashion designers to pursue careers in sustainable fashion design and to cut waste out of fashion. Since launching in Hong Kong in 2011, we now include Asian and European countries, and this allows for greater exchange of ideas, experience and knowledge. Each competition cycle takes designers on an education and design journey, giving them the tools to develop their understanding and skills in sustainable fashion design. Competitors are then challenged to create minimal textile waste garments using the sustainable design techniques of zero waste, upcycling and reconstruction. Following a stringent judging process, selected finalists show their collections at a prominent fashion week, where the winners are awarded with career-changing prizes. Together with our judges, partners and sponsors, we have created a high-impact competition.
The EcoChic Design Awards actively promote sustainable fashion as a viable option for the mainstream fashion industry. For that, it has the full support of the Hong Kong government.
The EcoChic Awards have done an incredible job in highlighting the infinite possibilities of upcycling, push young talents, young designers to demand more sustainable practices.
By participating in the EcoChic Design Award, I gained more knowledge and motivation to work in sustainable fashion design. As fashion designers, we have the power to reduce the environmental impact of the fashion industry and evolve to a better future.
Kelvin said, which were to, we have the power to create a better fashion industry and to devote to a better future. And that actually really sums up, for me, the social change that we're trying to do through this project. Again, I didn't know we were doing this until a couple of days ago, because we've actually just been doing it. But what actually was interesting, so whilst we're telling these guys, you can do it, we've created this platform, we're linking them up with big brands around the world, we're getting them loads of media, we're getting them brand opportunities, and they are getting shows around the world and exhibitions around the world. But what we're also doing on top of that is we're actually driving their empathy. We're making them think, what are you going to design with? Is it okay for the world? Is it going to pollute the world? Is it going to help people? How are you doing your production? How are you actually doing this? And I don't really think the word is do you care, but rather, you can do it. We are encouraging them that you really can do it. And the social change that's actually coming out of this is really, really, really exciting, because we're in our 5th or 6th cycle at the moment. We just closed our closing day a couple of weeks ago, and we had 40 countries from Asia and Europe apply. That's almost 50% of the coverage of Asia and Europe. We had Kazakhstan, Serbia, Israel, Iran, South Korea, Thailand, Thailand, Singapore, they're more normal countries for us. But there's Kazakhstan. I was really excited there. Excellent, we're cracking Kazakhstan, brilliant. And what it tells me is that people really seriously care. These designers genuinely care, and that is the social change that we're trying to bring about through the competition. And that's actually the biggest impact I think that the competition really has, is creating empathy in their lives and the way that they work and the way that they actually interact with their careers. The second example of how empathy, I think, is working out in our work and in my life is around consumers. And this is an area where I've had a massive problem with empathy. Because again, I'm really empathetic to the farmer in the field and the machinist in some Mumbai hellhole. But actually, when it comes to consumers, up to date, I've actually been really judgmental. I've actually been really horrible. I'm actually still quite horrible. I haven't quite worked this one out, but I'm getting better. Because basically, I just think, what the hell are consumers doing? Why are they buying all this stuff? Why? Seriously, wake up. Stop buying this rubbish and chucking it away, because it's really polluting the earth. And for years, I've actually just felt so angry about it that I haven't really been able to talk to the heart of a consumer. Because essentially, I don't really classify myself as a particularly normal consumer in that I don't derive much joy from consumption. So it's been very difficult for me to see fashion from a consumer's perspective. And I realised that was becoming a problem, because basically I felt really aggressive around consumers, which is a bit bad because the whole world is a consumer, including myself. So it was a bit of a horrible feeling to have. So instead, what I did is I tried to put my feet in somebody else's shoes. And what I did, hang on a sec, I'll tell you what, don't bring the video yet. So what I wanted to do was become more empathetic towards consumers. And so I did a project which allowed me not just to put my feet into their shoes, but actually to put their rubbish on my back. And so I did a project called the 365 Challenge, which actually completely radicalised my life and made me so much better at what I do. So we'll show you a quick video about that particular project.
You got living.
So that video was all about me. It was quite good fun, actually. But what it did is I directly gave myself empathy. I didn't know that that's what I was doing at the time, but actually what I was doing was exploring experiences that would give me empathy. And actually I've got a whole load more of them that I've also been doing, but we're going to stick with this one. So this was my wardrobe for a year. This is a big warehouse in Shongshui on the border, and it's full of clothes that other people have chucked away. that's kind of exaggerating. People have sort of donated them for recycling, so it hasn't gone to the landfill because clearly this is not a landfill. But all of these clothes are failed consumer purchases for whatever reason. They've chucked them out. And so I used to go here once a month and select items to wear. I would rifle around through consumers' waste. And in doing so, actually, I mean, it was really a depressing job. It's fun for the first 5 minutes, and then it becomes completely emotionally overwhelming because you are just dealing with failure, people's rubbish that they just bought, stuff that's brand new, stuff that's got a minor stain, stuff that's got a small button missing, stuff that's perfect. And you're just like, well, why are these people throwing this stuff away? So what I did with it is for a whole year, I basically wore other people's clothes, to literally put the problem on my back. It was great fun. I had learned so much. It grew me so much as a person, and it might sound really silly, but it kind of changed my life. So here are some of the outfits. Every day I posted on social media, and I just discovered how fantastic the fashion industry is. And I now know why consumers love fashion, because it is brilliant, and I became like a real fashion consumer, except I was consuming from a big bin. But for the first time, I really understand the challenge that we're up against in asking people to change. And the challenge is that fashion is fun, it's creative, it's part of our DNA, it's who we are, it's how we express ourselves. It makes us feel good, it makes us feel bad. And it's part of our life. And it was only through this project that actually I had that feeling of empathy. And the moment I got it, I became so much better at my job, because for the first time I could talk the language that would actually affect a consumer. Because I could say, I understand how you feel, but there is a way to love fashion without completely damaging the earth in the process. And as a result of that, I got an unbelievable amount of media for this particular project. It's not about me, it's about the cause. It's about inspiring people to be more conscious over what they wear. We're also writing a book at the moment that's coming out next year, a significant book that's incredibly exciting, got some of the biggest celebs around the world who are contributing it. It's a brilliant book, if only I could finish it. So I'm writing it with a couple of colleagues at work. So really this project has allowed me to be effective at what I do. But, as I said, everything that we actually do at Redress is focused around a bigger social change. This was my social change. This empowered me, but we took the project to another level to inspire other people to care. Because if other people care, I'm not joking, but if other people care around fashion and what they buy, how they care for their clothes and how they dispose of their clothes, genuinely we can change the fashion industry. Because we are the fashion industry. We're the ones who buy it. The brands are nothing without us. So to inspire empathy, caringness around other people, we needed to educate them and involve them in this. And so we opened my little project up to get other people to be involved.
Where the shutters always stay down. Let me in, let me up when I
So that was the sort of project that we invited other people around the world to take part in, and we we moved our Instagram platform so that every day, every other day, somebody else fronted it. So it wasn't me every day, but it was other people, what they do to be ethical around their clothes, and really to inspire all of their followers and our followers that there are so many gorgeous, fantastic, stylish, ethical, wonderful people out there, but we were trying to galvanize that on our platform. And so, in summary, thank you for this talk, by the way, because I've learned so much about myself. I've probably saved myself hours of therapy, getting to grips with this empathy thing.
So we would like to open up the floor to Q&A. So we probably have a few minutes, so we'll try and go through it rather quickly. If you can stand up and speak fairly loudly into the microphone, and just state your name as well.
Hi, my name is Eric Lowe. Great speech. I think the question I want to ask is, a lot of people have sympathy. I feel for you and everything, but how do you graduate from sympathy to empathy, to really feel, to walk in one's shoes? And as because you're in Hong Kong, which is a big city, and then everybody is busy, and how to really get out of it and to really make a change.
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, maybe someone else can help me with that. I mean, I don't know. Sympathy to me, and I'm not a psychologist, and really don't know much, but sympathy to me is more of a pitying feeling, whereas empathy is an understanding. Empathy is more of a trying to help because you understand, as opposed to, oh, poor you. I think that's probably the way I experience the difference. In terms of quite honestly, if we were all so empathetic, we'd be crying all day. There is a limit to how much we can actually feel, and that's a phenomenon. We can't follow all these wars and famines and deaths, and we just can't, because you have an overload. But I guess the empathy that we need to feel, this is from what I've understood, it should be quite immediate with the people around you. So it could be your direct teams. Some of the reviews I've been reading this week say that if you don't have empathy in your direct team, your entire organisation cannot be empathetic outside to your customers or your clients. So I suppose if Syria is too much and if famine is too much, then the empathy that we should practice in Hong Kong is just to one another. Yeah, and I think perhaps that will help it to grow. I don't know if that answers your question, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
To continue with that, how do you practice actually empathy? Any tips?
Yeah, well, I thought someone might ask what are the tips to empathy, so I had to Google it. I didn't know at all, because I've just been bumbling along doing it. So there's a few pieces of advice. I'm going to just check in order what they are. I know I didn't bring it, that was clever. Okay, so the first one is, I can't remember what they call it, but it's basically putting yourself out there to experience something. And for me, that was very true. So for example, me putting myself out into that bin was an opportunity for me to experience empathy from consumers. Another example, a design one. I read about this woman. She's quite old now, but she works for some design companies, maybe linked to Coca-Cola. I read it very quickly, but some years ago, she was working on a design project, and she just thought, I don't know what we're doing here. So what she did is she got dressed up as an 80-year-old woman. She got these really big fat glasses on, so she couldn't really see anything. She was all huddled up with a walking stick. And she spent a lot of time living like that to feel, what does it feel like to be old? And as a result of that, it completely changed the way that she designed all of her products. And she did, at the end of it, very well, because she empathized. She practiced it by putting herself in the situation. Another experience is a great author who he went and became a beggar for some time because he wanted to experience what is it like to be a beggar on the street. He dressed up, and then it influenced a book that he then went on to write. I've had a couple of experiences. One thing I did to feel more empathy towards mainland Chinese is I went on a bike ride. I cycled all the way through southern China to Vietnam on my bike, through the factory land, through the hellhole of China. It was horrific. And because of that, I've got so much more empathy for these people who work and live there. That's why I can feel it, because I cycled past them. I did 200 Ks a day, sitting there looking at what was going on. And that really helped me. Another thing I did, again, I've got a lot of judgments on people, so I don't want you to think that I think that I've got all the answers, but I have been practicing this experience in other people's shoes. I took in a homeless person a couple of years ago. There was this American homeless guy, he was really tiny, he's a skinny little boy. He was so young, and I saw him for about 2 or 3 months. I kept spotting him. I was like, who is this kid? And I finally tracked him down, and that's such a long story, but ultimately I took him in, and I got to know him. And it's changed the way I think about homeless people. Because he left his home in America, where he was middle class, because he wants to live around the world for nothing. He doesn't want to have any money in his pocket ever. But because I took him in, I now see homeless people as perhaps it's their choice that they're there. I don't feel pity with them. I feel empathy in some regards, but he changed my view of homeless people. And even when my kids were on holiday, I said to him, could you take my kids around Hong Kong and show them what it's like to be homeless? But they didn't stay out at night time. But that helped them as well, to see people on the streets in a different light. Yeah. So how do you practice it? You've got to really challenge yourself on it. Put yourself out there to experience something. I actually really would like to dress up as a beggar and give it a go. You know, it would be great. I just met this guy last week. He's an Indian reality TV star, long story. And he told me that part of his Bollywood training is that they made them dress up as beggars and go and sit in Bombay streets. I think perhaps just to take yourself out of your own life and think about experiences from other people's shoes. And he said it was so powerful. So suddenly maybe we should all be tramps. We should all go out and be beggars for the next creative. Yeah, and so that's one example. But there are other ways. Apparently, you know, if you really want to be empathetic, we have to learn how to listen. You've got to listen twice more than you speak. You really have to listen to what people are saying and try to understand why they're saying that. But there's another crucial part of listening, and that is sharing back. Because you can't be empathetic unless you share back, actually. So you can't just listen to someone's troubles going, oh yeah, oh yeah, poor you. You have to share, and that is empathy. Yeah. There's probably more tips, you may need to Google it.
One more question?
Hi, Michael Hansen. Is there, you think, a vicious and a virtuous cycle of empathy?
A vicious and virtuous cycle of empathy?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose a vicious cycle could. This is a very philosophical question. I'm quite on the spot to think of an answer, but a vicious cycle of empathy is perhaps if you're so empathetic that you really can't get anything done. The empathy is actually, in a way, to your detriment. I would say that would be relatively vicious. I don't know what, maybe you have an answer to it, but for me, empathy in itself should always be a good feeling. I don't think that if empathy were vicious, it must not be empathy.
I guess I mean more like, do you think empathy breeds empathy? If you put it out there, do you get it back?
Yeah. I don't know. Does anyone else have a perspective on that? What's your view?
I definitely think so, absolutely. I hope so.
Yeah.
It would be a nice part as the end of the conversation.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.